The transport ship times Meridian Times shuddered as it descended through the thick atmosphere of Kithara Prime, capital world of the Zelkari Empire. Captain Marcus Reed pressed his face to the small porthole, watching alien spires pierce through purple clouds. 3 years since the war ended, and he still felt his hands shake whenever he saw alien architecture. The Zelkari guards flanked him on both sides, their crystalline armor catching the filtered sunlight. They hadn't spoken during the entire journey from the neutral zone. Marcus understood why. Humans were still considered dangerous, even in peacetime. Especially humans like him, veterans of the Siege of Proxima, the peace treaty had called them. War criminals, the Zelkari preferred. Marcus knew the truth lay somewhere between those labels. He'd done what needed doing when humanity faced extinction. The fact that it worked didn't make the nightmares any quieter. The ship settled with a mechanical groan. Through the speakers, a translator device crackled to life. "Human Reed, you will accompany us to the throne chamber. King Vexhai will see you now." Marcus stood slowly, his prosthetic left leg clicking softly against the metal floor. The Zelkari had offered to regrow the limb with their biotechnology, but he'd refused. Some wounds were meant to be remembered. The palace corridors stretched endlessly, lined with flowing sculptures that seemed to pulse with their own light. Zelkari citizens pressed themselves against the walls as the procession passed, their 4 eyes tracking Marcus with undisguised fear and curiosity. He kept his face blank, soldier-straight posture intact despite everything. The throne chamber doors were massive, carved from what looked like a single piece of black stone. They opened silently, revealing a space so vast that Marcus couldn't see the far walls. At the center, on a raised platform of gleaming metal, sat King Vexhai. The Zelkari ruler was ancient, even by their standards. His skin had the deep purple hue that came with centuries of life, and his eyes held the weight of worlds. Unlike his subjects, he showed no fear of the human before him, only a cold, calculating interest. "Captain Marcus Reed," King Vexhai's voice resonated through implanted translators. "The Butcher of Proxima Station." Marcus didn't flinch at the title. "Your Majesty, you cost us many lives in that siege. 17,000 of my finest warriors, an entire battle fleet." The king's secondary arms gestured at holographic displays that materialized around them, showing the aftermath of humanity's most desperate gambit. "Tell me, human, was it worth it?" The question hung in the air like poison. Marcus thought of Earth's charred surface, of the billion souls that had been saved by their actions. "Yes." And King Vexhai leaned forward, his ancient features creasing into what might have been a smile. "I thought you might say that. Your species' capacity for necessary brutality is impressive. It's why I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening." The king gestured, and guards brought forward a large containment unit. Through the transparent aluminum, Marcus could see something moving inside. Something with dark fur and bright, intelligent eyes. "Do you know what this is, Captain?" Marcus studied the creature. It looked almost like an earth wolf, but larger, with longer limbs and a more pronounced skull structure. Its coat was pitch black, except for silver markings around the muzzle and ears. Most unsettling were its eyes, not the yellow or amber of Earth canines, but a deep, almost human blue. "Some kind of predator," Marcus said carefully. "This is Phoenix," King Vexhai said, and something in his tone suggested the name carried significance. "She comes from the world of Ashkani, in the outer reaches. Her species is called the Corvani, though your translators would render it as something like soul hunters. They were the apex predators of their world before we civilized it." The word civilized dripped with implications that made Marcus's military instincts prickle. He'd seen what the Zelkari called civilization: orbital bombardments and forced relocations. Phoenix here was a problem, the king continued. Her pack refused to accept our authority. They raided supply convoys, freed captured members of their species, even attacked our garrison directly. She was their leader. Marcus watched the creature in the cage. She was watching him back, and there was something disturbingly intelligent in that gaze. something that seemed to be evaluating him just as carefully as he was studying her. Her entire pack was eliminated 3 months ago. All except her. I was going to have her executed. But then I received word that you were requesting an audience, a war veteran, seeking purpose in peacetime. It gave me an idea, which is, King Vex High stood, his towering frame casting shadows across the chamber. Among my people, there is an old tradition. When a warrior shows exceptional skill against us, we honor them by giving them a prize from our conquered enemies, something dangerous, something that requires strength to control. I am giving Phoenix to you. Marcus felt his blood chill. You want me to take her as a pet? Pet? The king's laugh was like breaking glass. Oh no. Captain. Phoenix is no pet. She is a killer. Just like you, I'm giving her to you because I believe you might be the only being in this galaxy capable of controlling her. And if you cannot, he shrugged eloquently, then you both die. And I am rid of 2 problems. The implications were clear. This wasn't a gift. It was a death sentence with extra steps. The Corvani are unique among predator species, King Vex High continued. Their neural structure is remarkably similar to sentient races. They possess not just intelligence, but something approaching consciousness. Some scholars believe they might have evolved into a spacefaring race themselves, given enough time. Marcus looked at Phoenix again. She was still watching him, and now he could see something else in those blue eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or challenge. She understands us, doesn't she? More than you might expect. The Corvani have been exposed to Galactic standard languages for 3 generations now. Many of them learn to comprehend speech, though they lack the vocal apparatus to reproduce it effectively. Phoenix was particularly gifted in this regard. The king gestured, and the containment unit was wheeled closer to Marcus. This close, he could see the full size of the creature. She stood nearly 4 feet at the shoulder and probably weighed close to 200 pounds. Her coat was beautiful but bore scars, evidence of her battles against the Zelkari forces. She killed my nephew, King Vex High said quietly. Prince Mortai was leading the pacification force on Ashkani. She tore his throat out during the final assault on her den. Personal combat. Warrior to warrior. In the old days, I would have honored such a kill. These days you rule an empire, and examples must be made. Exactly. But you, Captain Reed, you understand the warrior's code. Even if you are human, you've killed for necessity, not pleasure. You've commanded others to their deaths for the greater good. Perhaps you can reach her where others cannot. Marcus stepped closer to the containment unit. Phoenix tensed, her ears flattening slightly. But she didn't retreat. Instead, she moved closer to the transparent barrier. Close enough that he could see the intelligence burning in those impossible blue eyes. What makes you think I want this responsibility? Marcus asked. Because you're here, King Vex High replied. Because you could have requested anything from me. Credits, property, safe passage to the frontier worlds. Instead, you asked for an audience. You're seeking purpose, Captain. Something to make the peace worthwhile. The king was right. And Marcus hated him for it. 3 years of civilian life had nearly driven him insane. No missions, no command, no clear enemy to fight, just endless quiet days and memories that wouldn't stay buried. If I accept this gift, Marcus said carefully, what exactly are you expecting? 1. Nothing. Everything. I want to see what happens when 2 apex predators from different worlds are forced to coexist. Will you destroy each other? Will one dominate the other? Or will you find some middle ground that neither of our species has imagined? The king's eyes glittered with scientific curiosity and barely concealed malice. Consider it an experiment in forced evolution. Marcus studied Phoenix one more time. She was beautiful and terrible. A living weapon wrapped in midnight fur. He could see the intelligence in her posture. The way she held herself ready to strike or flee. She was evaluating the threat he represented, just as he was doing with her. But there was something else. In the tilt of her head, in the way she kept meeting his eyes despite every instinct that should tell her to look away from a potential predator. Curiosity. Maybe. Or recognition of a kindred spirit. The choice is yours, Captain, King Vexhai said. Accept my gift and leave this world with her. Or refuse and face the consequences of your war crimes through our justice system. It wasn't really a choice at all, and they both knew it. Marcus had come here hoping for redemption, for some way to make amends for what the war had forced him to become. Instead, he was being given another weapon and told to make it work. He thought of the empty apartment waiting for him on New Geneva Station, of the jobs he couldn't take because his reputation preceded him, of the nightmares that came every time he tried to sleep in peace. Maybe the king was right. Maybe he was still a weapon, and weapons needed something to fight. I accept, Marcus said finally. King Vexhai nodded slowly. Excellent. You will be provided with transport to wherever you wish to go, along with basic supplies for her care. Do try to keep her alive, Captain. Dead specimens tell us nothing about adaptation. The containment unit was loaded onto a small transport vessel, along with several crates of supplies. Marcus signed the transfer documents with steady hands, though his mind was racing. He was now responsible for a creature that had been designed by evolution to kill, enhanced by intelligence, and driven by grief for her murdered pack. As the transport lifted off from Kithara Prime, Marcus found himself alone with his new companion for the first time. The containment unit had been moved to the ship's small cargo bay, and he stood before it, studying the creature that was now his responsibility. Phoenix watched him with those unsettling blue eyes, her ears forward and alert. She seemed calm, but Marcus could see the tension in her muscles, the readiness to spring into action at the first sign of threat. Well, girl, he said quietly, not sure if she could understand him or if he was just talking to hear his own voice. Looks like we're stuck with each other. To his surprise, Phoenix tilted her head at his words, her tail moving slightly. Not a wag exactly, but something that suggested she was listening. Marcus activated the transport controls for their next destination, a small way station in neutral space where he could figure out what to do next. As the stars shifted around them, he found himself wondering if King Vexhai was right. Were they both just weapons, cast off by their respective wars? And if so, what happened when two weapons decided to forge their own path? The question would haunt him for the next 3 days of travel, but he was beginning to suspect that the answer would surprise everyone involved, including himself. The waystation times, Haven's rest times drifted between the shipping lanes like a rusted monument to galactic commerce. Marcus docked his transport in one of the smaller bays, paying the exorbitant fees without complaint. He needed time to think, and more importantly, he needed a place where he could safely release Phoenix from her containment unit. The cargo bay he rented was sparse, just empty metal walls and basic life support. Perfect for his purposes. Marcus set up a portable shelter in one corner, arranged the supplies the Zelkari had provided, and then stood before the containment unit for a long moment. Phoenix watched him, her blue eyes tracking his every movement. For 3 days, she had been the perfect prisoner. Calm, alert, but never aggressive. Marcus suspected she was conserving her strength, waiting for an opportunity that might never come. All right, girl, he said, his hand hovering over the release mechanism. This is going to be a test for both of us. I'm going to let you out, but we need to establish some ground rules first. Phoenix's ears perked up at his voice, and Marcus could swear he saw understanding flicker in her expression. But that was impossible. King Vexhai had said she could comprehend speech, but comprehension and true understanding were different things. He activated the release. The transparent aluminum barrier slid down with a soft hiss, and for a moment, neither human nor Corvani moved. Then Phoenix stepped out of the containment unit with fluid grace, her massive paws making no sound on the metal floor. She was even more impressive free than she had been caged. A perfect predator, built for speed and power. Every movement spoke of controlled violence. Marcus stayed perfectly still, letting her take in her surroundings. She padded around the cargo bay's perimeter, nose twitching as she catalogued scents. When she reached the far corner, she turned and looked directly at him. "Easy," Marcus said softly. "I know this is confusing. New place, new situation. But we're both here now. So we might as well make the best of it." Phoenix tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made the hair on his arms stand up. Then, to his complete astonishment, she sat down and spoke. "You are the one who killed the crystal ships above the burning world." The voice was rough, alien, but unmistakably intelligent. It seemed to come from deep in her chest, shaped by a throat that was never meant for human speech but was somehow managing it anyway. The words were carefully pronounced, as if each one required significant effort. Marcus felt his knees go weak. "You can talk." "I have always spoken," Phoenix replied, her tail swishing once. "Your kind simply never listened." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If the Corvani were truly sentient, if they could communicate and reason at this level, then everything the Zelkari had done to their world was genocide, not pacification. And Marcus, by accepting Phoenix as a gift, had become complicit in that genocide. "How long?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "How long have your people been able to speak?" "Since the first star singers taught us the outer words," Phoenix said. She moved closer, her massive form radiating carefully controlled power. "Many generations. Long before the crystal-born came with their burning light. Star singers." Marcus racked his memory of galactic history. There had been rumors of an ancient spacefaring race that had made contact with pre-industrial worlds, sharing knowledge and language before mysteriously disappearing. Most scholars considered them a myth. "The progenitors," he breathed. "You're talking about the progenitors. Your word for them." Phoenix's pronunciation was getting clearer with each sentence, as if speaking to him was activating pathways in her mind that had been dormant. "They came to Ashkani when my grandmother's grandmother was young, taught us the sky words, the concepts that have no scent or taste." Marcus sat down heavily on one of the supply crates. The idea that the Corvani were an uplifted species changed everything. They weren't just intelligent predators. They were a people with history, culture, language, and the Zelkari had wiped them out like vermin. "Why didn't you tell them?" he asked. "Why didn't your people make it clear that you were sentient?" Phoenix's ears flattened. And when she spoke again, her voice carried a growl that raised every primitive alarm in Marcus's brain. "We tried. The first crystal-born to land on Ashkani, we sent speakers. Our best word. Weavers. Those most skilled in the outer tongue." Her blue eyes locked onto his. They were shot as they approached under peaceful signs. "The crystal-born declared us beasts that had learned to mimic intelligent speech." The casual cruelty of it made Marcus sick. He'd seen enough of war to know how easy it was to dehumanize the enemy, to declare them less than people so killing them became easier. But this was different. This was willful ignorance in the face of evidence. "So you fought back. We protected our young, our elders, our sacred places." Phoenix moved to the small water dispenser Marcus had set up and lapped at it delicately. When peaceful words failed, we spoke in the old tongue, the language of fang and claw. Marcus watched her drink and saw not an animal, but a person whose entire civilization had been destroyed while the galaxy looked the other way. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for what happened to your people. I'm sorry for what happened to your people." Phoenix lifted her head, water dripping from her muzzle. "You are not crystal-born. Your sorry words carry different weight. But I know who you are. Marcus Reed. I know what you did above the burning world." The burning world. She meant Proxima Station, where Marcus had made the call that saved Earth but cost thousands of Zelkari lives, where he'd become the butcher of Proxima in Zelkari eyes, and a hero in human ones. "You hate me for it," he said. It wasn't a question. "No." The simple word surprised him. "You fought for your pack, as I fought for mine. The crystal-born brought war to both our worlds. The difference is, your pack was strong enough to bite back." There was something in her voice, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. recognition of a shared experience that transcended species boundaries. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "King Vex High expects one of us to kill the other." "Because you let me free," Phoenix said simply. "The Crystal-born who brought me to their king's den. They spoke of you as a beast like me. Dangerous. Unpredictable. But you gave me choice when you could have kept me caged." She padded closer. Close enough that Marcus could feel the heat radiating from her body. This close, he could see the intelligence burning in those blue eyes. The careful calculation behind every movement. "Also," she continued, and Marcus could swear he heard something like humor in her voice, "the small king thinks he is clever, giving the broken wolf to the broken human, but he does not understand that broken things can be strong in ways that whole things cannot." Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. A loosening of tension he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. For 3 years, he'd been adrift. A weapon without a war. A soldier without a cause. But looking at Phoenix, seeing the intelligence and strength that had survived genocide, he felt purpose stirring again. "What do you want?" he asked. "To live," Phoenix said immediately. "To honor my pack's memory. To see if the galaxy has room for a Corvani who refuses to be tamed." She studied him carefully. "What do you want, Marcus Reed?" It was a good question. For 3 years, he'd been asking himself the same thing. Now, looking at this remarkable being who had survived the destruction of her entire civilization, he thought he might have an answer. "I want to make sure what happened to your people doesn't happen to anyone else," he said slowly. "I want to find a way to matter again." Phoenix's tail moved in what might have been approval. "Then perhaps the small king has made a mistake. He gives us to each other expecting death. Instead, he may have created something new." Over the following days, Marcus learned more about Corvani culture than any xenobiologist had ever documented. Phoenix was a willing teacher, eager to share the knowledge of her people with someone who actually listened. She told him about the song cycles that preserved their history, about the complex social structures that governed pack behavior, about the spiritual beliefs that connected them to the natural rhythms of their world. In return, Marcus shared his own stories. The war. The impossible choices. The weight of command when failure meant extinction. He found that Phoenix understood military thinking in ways that surprised him. The Corvani had been warriors too, fighting a desperate guerrilla campaign against impossible odds. But it was their differences that proved most interesting. Where humans relied on technology and organization, Corvani used instinct and pack bonds. Where humans planned for contingencies, Corvani trusted in adaptability. Where humans feared death, Corvani feared dishonor. "Your species thinks too much," Phoenix observed one afternoon as they worked together to repair a malfunctioning atmospheric recycler. Her dexterity with her paws was remarkable. She could manipulate small components with surprising precision. "Your species doesn't think enough," Marcus replied, checking the power coupling she'd adjusted. "How did you survive this long trusting everything to instinct? Because instinct is wisdom compressed. Your ancestors knew these truths before they buried them under sky words and star paths." Phoenix's ears flicked forward. In what Marcus had learned was amusement. But perhaps thinking too much and instinct wisdom can work together. They were testing that theory when the station's proximity alarms began blaring. Marcus rushed to the bay's small observation port and cursed at what he saw. 3 Zelkari patrol ships were approaching Times, Haven's Rest, *, their crystalline hulls gleaming with menace. These weren't merchant vessels or civilian craft. They were military ships, armed and ready for trouble. "We need to go," Marcus said, moving quickly to prep their transport. Now. But Phoenix was at the observation port, her body tense with predatory alertness. "No," she said quietly. "They are not here for leaving. They are here for hunting." She was right. The Zelkari ships were moving into a blockade formation, cutting off escape routes. Whatever this was, it wasn't a coincidence. "How did they find us?" Marcus wondered aloud. "The same way hunters always find prey," Phoenix replied, her voice taking on the growl that meant danger. They followed the scent trail we left behind. The communication system crackled to life. Attention, fugitive vessel. This is Commander Zethkar, of the Zelkari Imperial Navy. You are harboring stolen property belonging to His Majesty King Vexhai. Surrender the creature immediately, and you will be permitted to depart unharmed. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Fugitive vessel. They were calling Phoenix stolen property. Whatever game King Vexhai had been playing, the rules had just changed. What do you think? He asked Phoenix. She was silent for a moment, studying the enemy ships with tactical precision. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. I think the small king has made another mistake, she said. He gave you a wolf expecting to watch her die. Instead, he has given a wolf a human who knows how to fight starships. Marcus felt a fierce grin spread across his face. For the first time in 3 years, he had a mission. Protect his partner. Prove that the Corvani deserved respect, not extinction. Show the galaxy that some gifts came with teeth. All right, Phoenix, he said, moving to the transport's pilot station. Let's see what happens when a broken soldier and a free wolf decide to write their own story. The Zelkari ships were closing in, weapons powering up. But Marcus Reed was no longer the hollow veteran who had accepted a death sentence from an alien king. He was a protector again, a guardian of something precious and unique, and beside him, Phoenix bared her fangs in an expression that would have made her ancestors proud. The last wolf of Ashkani was ready to hunt among the stars. Marcus's fingers danced over the transport controls as the first Zelkari energy bolts lit up space around them. The ship shuddered under near misses, but he kept them moving, weaving between the larger vessels with practiced skill. They're hurting us, he called to Phoenix, who had positioned herself at the co-pilot station. Her paws worked the sensor controls with surprising dexterity, tracking the enemy ship's movements. Classic pincer formation. They want us alive. Not alive, Phoenix corrected, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. They want me alive. You are acceptable loss. Her ears flicked toward the communication array. The hunt leader speaks again. Commander Zethkar's voice filled the cabin, translated by the ship's systems. Human Reed, you have made a grave error. King Vexhai's patience has limits. Return the creature, and you may yet salvage some small portion of your miserable existence. Marcus ignored the transmission, focusing instead on the tactical display. 3 heavy cruisers against a single light transport. In conventional terms, it wasn't even a fight. But Marcus hadn't survived the siege of Proxima by thinking conventionally. Can you access the station's defensive systems? He asked Phoenix. Her claws clicked against the controls as she interfaced with Times Haven's Rest Asterisks network. Yes. But they are weak. Merchant grade only. The Crystal-born will punch through in moments. We don't need moments. We just need them distracted. Marcus brought up the station's layout on his screen. Look here, the fuel depot. If we can trigger an explosion there, the hunt pack will scatter to avoid damage, Phoenix finished, understanding immediately. But the station dwellers. Emergency evacuation procedures are already active. The bay we're in can detach as an independent pod. Everyone else will be clear in 90 seconds. Phoenix's blue eyes met his. And Marcus saw approval there. She understood the calculus of acceptable risk. The harsh mathematics of survival that warriors from every species eventually learned. Do it, she said simply. Marcus sent the override codes to the fuel depot's safety systems, while Phoenix coordinated the station's evacuation alerts. Around them, Asterisk Haven's rest times came alive with flashing lights and emergency klaxons as civilians rushed to escape pods. The explosion, when it came, lit up space like a small star. The fuel depot's stores of refined antimatter created a chain reaction that sent debris spinning in all directions. The Zelkari ships scattered exactly as predicted, their formation broken by the need to avoid the expanding cloud of wreckage. Now, Marcus whispered, and pushed their transport's engines beyond safe limits. They shot through the gap between 2 cruisers, close enough to see the intricate crystalline patterns carved into the alien hulls. Energy beams seared the space around them. But the Zelkari gunners were too cautious, too afraid of hitting their own ships. "They think like civilized beings," Phoenix observed, watching the tactical display with predatory interest. "Too much order. Not enough hunt instinct," Marcus had to agree. The Zelkari fought like they'd never faced an opponent willing to risk everything. Their formations were perfect, their discipline absolute, but they lacked the desperate creativity that came from having your back against the wall. "Warning," the ship's computer announced. "Hyperdrive systems are offline. Estimated repair time, 6 hours," Marcus cursed. They'd bought themselves time, but not freedom. The Zelkari would regroup and come after them, and running on sublight engines would only delay the inevitable. "There," Phoenix said suddenly, pointing at the sensor display. "The metal mountain." Marcus followed her gaze and saw what she meant. An asteroid, roughly spherical, maybe 2 kilometers across. Its surface was pocked with mining operations, abandoned by the look of the readings, but the tunnels would still be there. "Can we hide there?" "Not hide," Phoenix said, her ears flattening in what Marcus had learned was her expression for tactical thinking. "Hunt." She was right. The asteroid was perfect. A maze of tunnels and chambers where a small ship could maneuver, but larger vessels would be trapped. It was exactly the kind of terrain the Corvani had used to devastating effect during their guerrilla war. Marcus changed course, diving toward the asteroid as the reformed Zelkari squadron gave chase. Their transport was faster and more maneuverable than the cruisers. But it wouldn't matter once they were cornered. "Multiple incoming transmissions," the ship's computer reported. "Let them through," Marcus said. He was curious to hear what the Zelkari had to say. Commander Zethkar's voice filled the cabin. But this time it wasn't alone. King Vex-High himself spoke, his translated words carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Enough games, Captain Reed. You have cost me a fuel depot and embarrassed my navy in front of civilian witnesses. Surrender now, and I will ensure your death is quick." Marcus glanced at Phoenix, who was watching the approaching asteroid with intense focus. Her tail twitched once. A sign he'd learned meant she was calculating distances and angles. "Your Majesty," Marcus replied, activating the communication array. "With all due respect, I don't think you understand what you're dealing with." "I understand perfectly. A war criminal and a beast, both past their usefulness." "Wrong," Phoenix said suddenly, her voice cutting across the channel with startling clarity. "You understand nothing, small king. You give gifts without knowing their true worth." The silence on the channel was deafening. Marcus could imagine the chaos on the Zelkari command ship as they processed the fact that their beast was not only speaking, but speaking directly to their ruler. "Impossible," Zethkar's voice came through, shaken. "Animals cannot." "I am Phoenix, daughter of Ashkani, last speaker for the Corvani people," Phoenix interrupted, her voice carrying a dignity that transcended species. "I am no animal, crystal-born. I am what remains when you burn a world and think you have conquered it." Another pause, longer this time. When King Vex-High spoke again, his tone had changed. Less certain, more wary. "The creature speaks. Interesting. But it changes nothing. You are both rebels against lawful authority." "Armain, lawful?" Marcus felt anger building in his chest. "You call genocide lawful? I call it necessary." The Corvani were dangerous, unpredictable. They could not be trusted to follow galactic law. 2. "Because we would not bow," Phoenix added, and there was steel in her voice. "Because we remembered what freedom tasted like." Their transport entered the asteroid field, and Marcus immediately killed the engines, letting momentum carry them into one of the larger tunnel mouths. The passage was just wide enough for their ship, but the Zelkari cruisers would never fit. "Clever," came Zethkar's voice. "But you only delay the inevitable. We will wait. Your life support will fail long before our patience does." Marcus was about to respond when Phoenix placed a paw on his arm. When he looked at her, she was smiling. An expression that looked unsettling on her lupine features, but somehow conveyed absolute confidence. "Tell me, Marcus Reed," she said quietly. "What did you carry in your cargo holds during the siege of Proxima?" Marcus frowned, not understanding the connection. "Mining charges. Shaped explosives for breaching hull plating." "Why?" "And this asteroid, full of tunnels, old mining shafts that reach deep into the core." Understanding hit Marcus like a lightning bolt. The asteroid wasn't just a hiding place, it was a weapon. A 2-kilometer wide-shaped charge waiting for the right trigger. "That's insane," he breathed. "The explosion would take out everything in a 10-kilometer radius." "Including the hunt pack," Phoenix agreed. "But also, including us." Marcus studied the sensor readings, his tactical mind working through the possibilities. The asteroid was honeycombed with mining tunnels, some of which reached almost to the core. If they could place charges at the right points, create a controlled collapse. "Not necessarily," he said slowly. "Look at these tunnels. If we can get to the far side before detonation, there's a natural cavern system that might provide enough shielding." "Might," Phoenix repeated. "Many unknowns, much risk. But if it works, we take out their ships and make a statement that the galaxy won't forget. The last Corvani and a human veteran, refusing to be erased quietly." Rounting. Phoenix was quiet for a long moment, considering. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of her entire extinct civilization. "My pack brothers died protecting our young. My pack sisters died defending our sacred places. If I must die, let it be in a way that honors their memory. Let it be in a way that tells the galaxy we were here, and we mattered." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. In that moment, Phoenix wasn't just his partner or his responsibility. She was family, chosen rather than born, forged in the crucible of shared purpose. Then let's give them a story they'll never forget. They worked together with the efficiency of a team that had trained for years rather than days. Marcus rigged the explosives while Phoenix plotted their escape route through the asteroid's tunnel system. Her enhanced senses proved invaluable. She could detect structural weaknesses and air currents that his instruments missed. "The hunt pack grows impatient," she reported as they planted the final charges. "They are sending scout drones into the tunnels." Marcus checked his chronometer. "We need 15 more minutes to reach safe distance. Then we buy 15 minutes. Phoenix's ears flicked toward the tunnel mouth where light was beginning to flicker. The approaching drones. The old way. Fang. And claw. She was gone before Marcus could protest, flowing through the darkness like liquid shadow. He heard the first drone die. A brief scream of torn metal and sparking electronics. Then the second. The third managed a single transmission before Phoenix's claws found its power core. Marcus ran through the tunnels, following the path they'd plotted, trusting Phoenix to cover their retreat. Behind him, he could hear more drones arriving, their searchlights sweeping the darkness. Then Phoenix was beside him again, her black coat making her nearly invisible in the asteroid's shadow. "Too many," she reported. "They will find the charges. Not if we trigger them now. We are too close. The collapse will catch us." Marcus made a decision that felt inevitable, like stepping off a cliff in freefall. "Not if we don't run from it." Phoenix understood immediately. Instead of fleeing the explosion, they would ride it, use the asteroid's destruction as cover for their escape, trusting their ship's shields and their own skill to survive what no sane person would attempt. "The Crystal-born will think us dead," Phoenix said, approval clear in her voice. "And the dead can go anywhere." Marcus activated the detonator. The asteroid came apart like a flower of fire and stone, its 2-kilometer bulk releasing energy that had been building in its compressed core for millions of years. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, a brief sun that lit up the asteroid field before fading to memory. At the exact moment of detonation, their transport burst from the far side of the dying mountain, riding the shockwave like a surfer on a tsunami. The ship's shields screamed under the assault, overloading and failing in cascades of sparks, but they held long enough for the worst of the energy to pass. Behind them, the Zelkari cruisers were caught in the full force of the explosion. Their shields, designed for energy weapons and particle beams, couldn't cope with the raw kinetic force of 2 kilometers of rock moving at significant fractions of light speed. Commander Zethkar's final transmission was lost in static, but the sensor readings told the story clearly enough. 3 heavy cruisers reduced to expanding clouds of crystalline debris. "Hyperdrive coming online," Marcus reported, his hands steady on the controls despite everything they'd just survived. "Where do we go?" Phoenix asked. Marcus thought about it. They were fugitives now, wanted by the Zelkari Empire. But the galaxy was vast, and there were places where even King Vex High's authority couldn't reach. "Wherever we want," he said finally. "The frontier worlds. Maybe. Places that need people who know how to fight, and speak for those who have no voice," Phoenix added. Marcus nodded. They'd found their purpose in each other. Not just survival, but something greater. A mission to ensure that what happened to the Corvani would never happen again. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the debris field behind, emergency beacons were already broadcasting the story across the galaxy. A human veteran and an alien predator, working together to survive impossible odds. The last member of a supposedly extinct species, speaking with eloquence and dignity about her people's destruction. The footage would spread through underground networks and independent news services, sparking debates in the Galactic Council about sentient rights and the true nature of civilization. Xenobiologists would demand access to Corvani survivors, if any could be found. Philosophers would write treatises on the implications of uplift and genocide. But none of that mattered to Marcus and Phoenix as they traveled toward the frontier. What mattered was that they were free, they were together, and they had found in each other something that neither species could have achieved alone. The human who had learned to trust instinct. The wolf who had learned to plan for tomorrow. Partners in the truest sense, carrying the best of both their peoples toward whatever future they chose to build. Behind them, King Vex High received reports of the asteroid's destruction with growing unease. His gift had become something he never intended. Not a death sentence, but a declaration of independence. The broken soldier and the scorned wolf had refused to play by his rules, and in doing so, had reminded the galaxy that some bonds couldn't be controlled. In the depths of space, moving toward worlds where anything was possible, Marcus and Phoenix planned their next move. There were other species facing extinction, other civilizations being written off as primitive, other wars that needed someone willing to fight for the underdog. The galaxy had tried to discard them both. Instead, it had created something new, something dangerous, something that would make sure the powerful remembered that mercy was a choice, not a given. And in the cargo hold of their small ship, carefully preserved in a climate-controlled container, the genetic samples that Phoenix had salvaged from her homeworld waited for the day when Ashkani might bloom again among the stars.